It takes a toll. One into the night, the screams draw away. One by one, it takes a toll. Stepping over the dead, stepping over the dead, sons of fathers alone. We bid them sleep, and go on to the next one, the next one. There's one knocked on the ground. Wait, we will tell you. I know this one. Mother, we're mother to none and mother to all. Here in the dark. Waves cascading, the heat growing and burning, the skin inside is distorted, contorted, torn till you feel it's cracked. This flesh is a mask. This face, not my face at all. This face, not my face at all. Not my face at all. Waves cascading, the heat growing and burning, the skin inside is distorted, contorted, contorting till you feel it's cracked. This flesh is a mask. This face, not my face at all. This face, not my face at all. Not my face at all. You girls need each other. You girls need each other. Maybe you can't see it now, but you girls need each other. You girls need each other. You girls need each other. Maybe you can see it now, but I miss my sister every day, and just to look, what havoc you two created, working apart. Now imagine what you might create, working together. You girls need each other. You girls need each other. Imagine what you might create. Imagine what you might create. Working together. Together. Working together.
Good evening and welcome to the Expressions Digital Director's Cut featuring the Pocket Opera Project. I'm Andy Piak, broadcasting live from the WSKG Digital Studios, and over the next hour we will learn more about this community collaboration that looks to bring opera to everyone. I'll talk to key members of the production and even show you a performance that we didn't have time for on the broadcast episode. Now, this is an interactive program, and we would love to hear from our audience over the next hour. So feel free to use the chat box to ask a question to any of our guests, and we'll do our best to get it answered. Let's get the program started by bringing on the General Director of Tri-Cities Opera to talk about the origins of this great project. Here is John Rizzoni. John, welcome to the program. How are you this evening?
I'm doing very well, Andy. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And I know you were telling me earlier it was a huge day for you, and I know it's a very exciting time for TCO as you are celebrating your 75th anniversary this season. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. You know, we had a press conference earlier today with many of our elected officials, and we're replacing the roof on the Tri-Cities Opera Center. So there's a lot of great things happening. And we're just so excited to not only reflect on the past 75 years, but also look forward to the next 75 years. And I think actually it tees right into this program because we really believe that projects like the Pocket Opera Project are the future, are part of the future of our company. And, you know, this program actually in 2020, in the height of the pandemic, the wonderfully talented Kanan Harris, who was a student at Binghamton University at the time, came to me with a project that he had received some funding for through the SUNY system. He had received a prize to put this together, and he approached Tri-Cities Opera to help and make it happen. And so his concept was to, you know, create stories, commission stories from grade school students about local history and local subjects, and turn those into mini operas. And this grant and prize had been applied for actually before all the crazy hit us in 2020. And by the time we were able to get the project on its feet, which really the first time we did the Pocket Opera Project was in 2022, many of the composers who were supposed to be featured, Binghamton University students, had already graduated. So we ran into kind of a little conundrum with that. But we were able to work through and get the first iteration of Pocket Opera Project on its feet. And after the ringing success of that event, we really felt that doing this again was super important. And so what we'll view tonight is the second iteration of the project. And it has been such a joy to actually even more fully realize what Kanan's initial vision was, which was to incorporate students who were in their degree programs in the wonderful composition department at Binghamton University, incorporate this into their work as students. And so for this iteration of Pocket Opera Project, we were able to collaborate with Dan Davis, Daniel Thomas Davis, and also James Budanich, the two composition professors at Binghamton University, incorporate this program into the curriculum for those students and really give them maybe their first, maybe early experiences in writing opera. And, you know, I think a lot of people think of opera sometimes as an art form from 200 years ago, but it really is an art form that is alive and well, an art form that is constantly being reinvented and reimagined, and there are operas about so many different things. So it really all came together in a beautiful way. We received some funding from the Hoyt Foundation to support Tri-Cities Opera's continued involvement with the Pocket Opera Project. And of course, work with the BU Music Program again, with, of course, WSKG and the wonderful story competition that WSKG runs. Was such an amazing resource for gathering stories to inspire these operas. And then as we put it all together, we worked with the No Theater and their librettists to create, scripts for the composers to set to music. It really was just a wonderful collaboration across a lot of organizations who believe that not only the consumption of art is important, but the creation of art. There's something very special about digging in that way.
Well, and it all culminated in a public performance this past May at the Tri-Cities Opera Center. And I mean, it was a packed house as far as I could tell. We were there filming some of the proceedings. And I think to your point, the whole point of the Pocket Opera Project is to bring opera to people who might not usually experience it. And I would say a good portion of the audience at that performance, it had to have been probably the first opera that they saw.
Yeah, it's pretty thrilling. I think, especially for the students and young people who wrote stories, to have them, have such a meaningful first experience with opera. I mean, a big part of what TCO does, we go into schools every year and tour children's opera, but this allowed for engagement in a different way. It's different to consume than to create. Both are important pieces of the artistic equation, but there were many new people, the students who wrote the stories, the families of the students, and then people who were just interested in an interesting concept and something that was new and different. I think, we're always looking to bring people into the opera world and show them that it's so much more than we might think it is, and that it really is for everyone. And so it's been thrilling to be a part of this project and just share our love and create new love for the art form.
Well, and you mentioned that the pocket operas are based on local history. I know the first year, I believe you did a production on Alonzo's Ghost from the Roberson Museum.
We did, yes, absolutely. The Roberson's Ghost. We did a production on the flood of 1935 in Whitney Point. It was just such a cool, cool way to see local history featured. In the second iteration of Pocket Opera Project, we sort of broadened the scope of the stories that we collected. And actually, I think that was wonderful. And we got some really interesting, fun things out of that. But I think in the first iteration, there was a very specific sort of educational goal, which was to engage, basically middle school students who were learning local history and letting them use that local history and imagine being a part of that, or what it was like to experience that as part of these operas and these stories. And I think, the growth we've seen by incorporating WSKG's stories from the WSKG Writers Challenge. Is that the right? I think that's the name.
The Student Writing Challenge. Yeah,
thank you.
Definitely.
The Student Writing Challenge. Forgive me. I sometimes lose my words. But the Student Writing Challenge was such a wonderful, broader reaching way to gather some of the best writing, the best stories, the best ideas for this project, and really have just an obscene number of entries to choose from, and find just the most creative, inspiring things to our composers.
Well, I do want to say, John, I think it was probably close to a year ago, and I think we were just meeting about, general projects that we could work on. And I think it was towards the end of the meeting, and you mentioned that, you were maybe looking to incorporate the Student Writing Challenge. And I'm like, well, who I need to talk to about this, John? I need to talk to our Director of Education, Brianna Moreno. And so I did that at the office, and you know what? She's actually here tonight too to talk about the Student Writing Challenge. So let's bring Brianna on. Brianna, how are you this evening?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, of course, Brianna's been our amazing Director of Education for a few years now, and this contest long predated both of us here at the station. Why don't you give our audience a little history of the Student Writing Challenge?
So our WSKG Writers Challenge is a great opportunity for students from K to 12 to write fiction, nonfiction, or poetry selection. And we have gone 25 years with this challenge, and it started with the Reading Rainbow. And it was a way for students to do a writing and illustration challenge. And over the years, it's progressed to a different kind of demographic that we have. And we don't just take illustrations with the stories, we take writing in general, because we know that everyone has different talents and we want to see what they have. And in this digital world, we want students to be able to show those feelings on paper. So in my first year in 2023, we had about 200 entries, which was a great amount over our 21 counties. And last year in 2024, we had over 550 entries. And a lot of them were from schools that we've never seen before entering into this contest. We had teachers that came in that just loved this project and had their students be able to do this in the classroom. We had parents that brought the kids to have the entries. And it was just a great way to show what students are capable of and what they can do with their creative minds.
And of course, it culminates every year in an amazing awards ceremony. I want to say this past award ceremony we held here at WSKG in May had probably close to 250 people from all across our 21 county viewing and listening region. There's a proud award winner showing off his certificate. And it was just so much fun for the students to come and get a tour of the station, and we interviewed some of them, and it was just a truly magical evening, I would say.
It was such a wonderful night. We had 49 winners, ranging from kindergarten to 12th grade, and when the students came, they had a red carpet. They were able to take a picture, and we treated them like they were getting an amazing award, and they deserved it. They deserved every part of it. So they had scavenger hunts, and they got their awards, and they could see why the judges picked them. And it was truly an emotional night for some of the students. They really saw that we gave such weight to make sure that they had the best night that they could. And some of these students, they said to us, we don't have these opportunities to showcase our writing. We want to be able to do that. And this gives us the opportunity.
And we can post a link in our chat box that can take you to all the winners from last year's contest. It can show you can read their stories. Some are just truly amazing. When we talk to our professor from Binghamton in a little bit, we'll talk about the subject matter, but just really amazing stories from all the students that entered. Brianna, any final thoughts? And also we can post a link too if anyone is interested. If anyone has a child K through 12 who would like to enter in this year's upcoming contest, that is ready to go, I believe. It
is. It went live today. So our 25th anniversary WSKG Writers Challenge is live on our website, and we'll be reaching out to schools, to libraries to give out more of the information in the entry forms. All entries are due by May 5th. But we're going to have a great time this year judging the entries. We're hoping for even more entries, up to 700 if possible, because we want to showcase all of our region, and we want to make sure that all of the students are heard.
So May 5th, students, don't be like me and get that entry in on May 4th. Okay. You have plenty of time. Brianna, anything else that you want to talk about that's coming down the pike from WSKG Education? I know you guys just do such a tremendous job with all the outreach and educational materials that you provide all the educators in the area.
We are out in the community every week. We are at different libraries across our region. We do a library excursion program where we go to libraries and show clips of our PBS shows, and then do some educational resources that go along with them, and provide some sensory materials as well. We also have a scarecrow at Otsego Park. So if you are interested in going to get a picture with our Bob Ross scarecrow and take a picture with the happy little trees, we would love to see your pictures and to our website. So we would love to see that. That's
great. I think last year we had a Oscar the Grouch scarecrow, correct? Or Elmo, I believe. Elmo.
Yes.
Sesame Street. I was close anyway.
We're very close.
Brianna, before you go, I just want to say thank you for all of your work to make this happen, because it's inspiring to see these kids inspired. It's important. It's great. So thank you.
Thank you. As a reading teacher for 22 years, is the value of putting writing and music together is just an amazing opportunity for everyone involved. So I appreciate it.
Awesome.
So yes, thank you so much for all the great work you do here at the station, and for joining us here tonight, Brianna. And I'm sure I'll probably see you walking down the hallway tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thank you, Andy.
All right. So the stories went from Brianna's desk to Binghamton University, where Associate Professor of Music Dan Davis worked with his students on turning them into operas. So let's bring Dan into the program right now. Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Hi, Andy. How are you? Thanks so much for having me here. It's a real pleasure to join you all.
Oh, of course. Why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you do at Binghamton University, and how you got wrapped up in the Pocket Opera Project?
Of course. I've had the great privilege of being a professor here at Binghamton for the past 11 years or so, where I direct our music composition program and get to make an amazing number of sounds with an extraordinary cohort of both graduate student and undergraduate student composers and songwriters and sound artists and lots of others as well, and also benefit from the support of an amazing team of colleagues as well.
Well, yeah, we've worked with Binghamton University in the past. We went behind the scenes of your production of Hansel and Gretel. I know you work closely with Jean Goodhart, and she's a dear friend of ours here at the station. So you were tasked with working with the student composers on turning these stories into operas. What was your first reaction when you realized you were going to be using these student stories as the basis for the adaptations?
That's a great question, Andy. I mean, I think we really value collaboration here at Binghamton within the music department, but really across the university and certainly across the arts. So it's really kind of baked into our curriculum. But this presented a number of joyful challenges, I would say. So we had a really all-star team of 9 composers, mostly grad students and a few undergrads in the mix too. I should say that's Adrian Finney, Liam Frager, Charlie He, Ali Kiani, Joe Kosick, Kyle McAfee, Saman Apaya, Ali Sedeki, and Win-Win Vanderwinde. And we're assisted by my colleague James Budenich, and none of this would have happened without our in-house project director, Jean Goodhart, who you mentioned earlier, Andy, as well as the support of Binghamton's Center for Civic Engagement, which has been a great ally and advocate in making this kind of work. So we have a number of stories, right, that may or may not seem immediately dramatic, right? I think we're seeing some of them. There's mac and cheese.
Well, yeah, that's like
hamsters were very popular in this particular season. We had two stories that were chosen that involved hamsters. One was a hamster in its cage looking at a fish in its tank, and the two decided to swap lives, which was both very cute, but I think a metaphor about a larger sort of social and
grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fishbowl, Dan.
Exactly. So sometimes it turns out the kindergartner is wiser than the rest of us. But in any case, we also had stories about elves and magical worlds and kingdoms, a quite poignant story about post-war trauma, and also some outer space as well.
I was going to ask because
a lot here. Sorry, Andy, please. Yeah.
Well, because of the K through 12, the age range is so, you have the first graders and second graders writing about their favorite animal or mac and cheese, like we saw, or we have stories like this where the older students are writing about losing a grandparent, or the effects of bullying, or like you said, post-war trauma. Even like I wonder, like the breadth of stories was so diverse, and the subject matter spans so much. Like, did that make it harder or easier even to turn these into operas?
Yeah, both, in fact. I think the truth is the project has this cross-generational, experiential component really embedded in it so thoroughly that we all find our ways into it, right? So we have graduate students who are already getting professional commissions, who are just on the edge of their professional careers. We have young professional artists at TCO. We have faculty collaborating artists, and we also have kindergartners and junior high school students and high school students. And I think it's one of the real magical elements of this project and of art making generally is that art knows no boundary, be it age or background, or even species when it comes to these hamsters, right? And I think that really happened here. I think one of our challenges, of course, as composers, is to, these were not stories that were originally meant to be sung, right? And I always say to my students, if you're ordering a sandwich, right? what would happen if you sang your sandwich order? Right. So I want turkey and cheese, but you're singing it at the top of your voice, right? You're going to get some funny looks, right? So that's part of what we do, is we figure out how to take language that's on the page into something that's on the stage. And I know Santino is going to talk about that in a bit too. But one really essential part of this collaboration is the workshop process, in which the students don't do the whole thing right away, but they take maybe just one nugget, a few lines, and turn it into a song or an aria, to kind of get their feet wet with these characters, with these voices, and that we'll do that again in the next iteration of this collaboration. But it really makes this whole process come alive comparatively early, right? So as the composers are finding their voice alongside these voices from K through 12 students, while they're imagining the literal voices of TCO's artist. And that's a really, really special moment in this collaboration ahead of the full-on premiere a couple months later.
Well, and obviously the student composers are writing the music, and we had a 4-piece set of musicians on the stage. Can you tell me how it was decided what instruments were going to be used? I believe there was flute, cello, percussion, and piano. So I wonder if you can talk about how the instruments were chosen for the students to write to those.
You'll have to cut me off here if I keep nerding out about instrumentation too much. That's you're really in my wheelhouse here, Andy. So you're only looking at 4 musicians here, but we really thought of it as a mini micro orchestra, right? So we've got one string player on the lower side, that's the cello. We've got one woodwind player, that's my colleague Jeannie Sperber on flute, that's on the higher side. We have John Cockrell, who's also the music director, who is running music rehearsals with the singers on top of playing and conducting, and is himself a magician.
Absolutely.
Really heroic work in this project. So John, thank you again. And then we have all the fun stuff. I mean, flute and cello and piano are fun too, but nothing's as fun as percussion, right? And I think the percussion seemed really essential given the stories, and that really emerged from the stories. So yes, there's cymbals and drums, but there's also marimba and vibraphone and metallic instruments that might somehow evoke some of the magical, the elfin, the space exploration elements of these stories. And we talked about this as a group, the faculty and the student composers. Like, so what ensemble do you hear with these stories? And absolutely in every case there was, well, we hear some kind of percussion. Now I did have to I shouldn't say this, but I'm saying it anyway. I did have to say we're not going to have timpani, because it's a comparatively smaller size stage with the instruments around the players, and the timpani might have been a little bit of a staging issue. But besides that, we really thought about the settings of the stories and how we might riff on that sonically.
Well, I wish we had a pedometer or a step counter on Joel Smales, our percussionist, because you guys had him running around the back of that stage, going from his xylophones to his vibraphones to his cowbells to his snare drum. It was remarkable seeing him, go from spot to spot and, read the music, make sure he had the right instrument coming in at the right time. Just always such a joy to see all of these, all these pieces of the puzzle, come together for the final performance, for sure.
Yeah, it really provided for an interesting evening. And I think, Dan can speak to this also, but there's something special about composers hearing their music performed, not just with piano, with an ensemble. And I think those opportunities are rare. They can be rare because it's expensive to hire musicians, and when there's not a full project behind it. So it was very exciting for us to add the percussion this year. We didn't have it last time we did it, and I think it really helped, as Dan said, really helped just dig into the atmosphere and the expression in these stories. It was a lot of fun.
So what's it going to look like for next year? How many more instruments are you going to add?
John, I think we're adding about 37 more.
Oh, yes. We'll hire the whole TCO.
We're on camera right now, so I think you said yes.
No comment. Figure it out.
All right, you heard it here first. Well, Dan, anything else you want to add before we let you go? And now that you know where the winning entries are, I'm sure you'll be going right to that webpage looking for the next year's
material. I'm dying to know if we have more small mammals this year in the same percentage. I'm just immensely grateful for all the partners in this. I've said it already, but Tri-Cities Opera, WSKG, No Theater, my colleagues here at Binghamton. It's really a barn raising. And I will also express my real gratitude and admiration to the students here at Binghamton as well, who really brought their A game to this project. It's a busy time of year, and not necessarily the most obvious one for professional training when you come into a degree program, and they really brought an extraordinary level of care and invention and play to this project. And I'm looking forward to the next version.
Well, and I am happy to report, Dan, that we do have stories about bullfrogs and capybaras that made the winners list next year. So plenty of small mammals for you to choose from.
Love it.
I want to plug one thing. I just think the level of talent that Dan's program is attracting at Binghamton University is absolutely remarkable. And we have the Pocket Opera Project, but there are lots of other events throughout the year where you can check those things out. So check out the Binghamton University concert calendar, dig into these these are the up and coming, these are the future of what we do in so many ways. And so just encourage the audience to really look into that. There are wonderful things happening all the time in this community, and Dan's program is really wonderful.
Thank you, John. And we have another Pocket Opera iteration in May of 2025.
Yeah, May 10th, 2025. It's coming up quick.
It'll be here. It'll be here before we know it, I'm sure.
I should go email my students right now to see how they're.
Yeah, right. Let's get that going.
Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, Dan, and best of luck with next year's production and everything else you guys have going on over there at Binghamton University.
It's a pleasure as always. Thanks, Andy.
All right.
Thanks,
yeah,
John.
of course.
Thank you.
And a reminder, you are watching the Expressions Digital Director's Cut featuring the Pocket Opera Project, and it is an interactive program. So if you have any questions for any of our guests or about the Expressions program, please post them in the chat box. Now, our next guest is no stranger to WSKG Productions, as we'll discuss in a minute. And in a minute, here is the very talented Santino D'Angelo.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Nice to see you.
Welcome to the program. Santino calling in from New York City, Brooklyn.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
always
Grand Army Plaza.
Always appreciate someone calling in from the five boroughs. And Santino, I asked you before if you remembered where you were probably 15 years ago in early October, and you actually were able to remember. And we have a picture that we're going to put up right there. There is Santino.
Yes, 17 years old. I still had hair.
This was part of our Twilight Zone live production, which was by far the most robust live production I have ever been a part of here at WSKG. We probably had close to 20 actors, full staging, microphones, music, sound effects. It was absolutely amazing, and Santino got to be a small part of it.
We fully staged 2 Twilight Zone episodes from start to finish, including the Rod Serling vamp at the beginning. And that was surreal. We grew up in this community where my first award I ever won as a writer was the Rod Serling Award for screenwriting at the Rod Serling Video Festival at Binghamton High School. And he's a North Star for our creative community. I know we just unveiled this big statue.
Mm-hmm.
That's really amazing. But yeah, I can't believe that was 15 years ago.
I know it does not seem that long ago. I do believe we are planning on re-airing Twilight Zone live this December on WSKG, and you can also go to our video page, video.wskg.org, if you ever want to check that out. So
that's really wonderful. You do amazing
all right.
stuff.
So Santino, let's we can advance from the Twilight Zone to the Pocket Opera. How did you get involved? I know you live down in Brooklyn now, but I know you still come back up to Broome County to help out with the No Theater and TCO.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big hometown boy. And no, really what happens is John Rizzoni calls me and I can't say no to him.
I'm going to keep calling, Santino. Don't say no. Oh, it looks like we lost him.
Uh-oh. Oh, geez. Well, Rod Serling, he calls for everyone. Well, Santino's job, I'm sure Santino will be coming back shortly, but his role in the project was a stage director, and we could probably talk a little bit about. So after the stories were adapted by the BU composers, Santino worked with our talented singers. There he is. He's back.
I don't know what happened. I'm sorry.
It's got to be the Twilight Zone. That's all we can.
We invoked him. Sorry.
No problem.
In my absence, I apologize.
No problem. So we were kind of going over your role, but now that you're back, why don't you talk about the stage the stage production that you added to the Pocket Opera project?
Yeah. So basically, what we are trying to do. Well, initially, just even going back to the librettist, we really wanted to get the community involved in another way. We have these incredible kids writing these beautiful stories. We have Binghamton University's talent. And we also have a lot of great artistic talent that's inside the Binghamton community. I grew up at No Theater in downtown Binghamton. They gave me my first job actually as a writer and composer. And that's run by Tim Gleason. They've been in business for 30 years and they develop new work as a part of their theater practice. They do this thing called the Playwrights Festival, which actually is underway as we speak, where I think this is the 25th anniversary or 20th anniversary. It's a big year for them, and they solicit scripts from our community and from all over the country, and they stage them in downtown Binghamton, and that happens always over Thanksgiving. This year I think it's November 22nd, around that area, but check out their website, notheater.org. But so we wanted to get some people from the community involved, and I reached out to Tim, and we ended up working with Marshall Fry and Sarah Lynn Eaton and John Mabey, all great playwrights who had participated in playwriting programs at No Theater, and we threw them into this mix where they got to work with the composers. Some of the composers were also themselves the librettists, but some of the composers wanted to work with an artist, and so instead of just another student, we gave them the option to get to work with an adult and bringing their experience to this transformation of this children's story. So that's the first step of the theater's involvement in this, and then the second step of directing this piece, it really is about trying to protect the process of creation. This is not a final draft. By the time the audience comes in and sees our presentation, we've been working at it for less than 2 weeks. And that is, that's the nature of making art in this world. We are, in a certain sense, magicians, especially John Rizzoni, because what we do doesn't pay for itself. So we have to make do with the time constraints that we have, and you let those parameters fuel our creativity, not limit them. So we do this aria workshop. This is our second year doing this, as everybody's been saying. One of the things we added this year was a workshop about halfway through the spring semester when these are being written, where I came up to Binghamton and sat with the artistic team, and we listened to some of the arias that had been created, and it was sort of like a midway point for us to check in with the art and give feedback to the composers while they can still make changes. And that's why I brought up about how short the presentation part itself is, because there's not a lot of room for the playwright to be able to, or excuse me, for the composer and the librettist to be able to make adjustments. And we want them to be able to do that, because that's the part of the creative process that is so expensive, and therefore the part that they sometimes have the least access to. So you want to create this experience where you are telling the cleanest story that you can in the simplest way, so that as much that needs to change can change inside of it. And the operas invariably do change from the first rehearsal to our performance the week after. So, it's great. It's also usually the beginning of a cycle for the TCO resident artists. So our crazy little baptism by fire is one of the first things the singers sometimes get to do. So it's like summer camp.
Well, we do have an image of the singers. And I don't know if John, if you want to introduce the the talented musicians that performed this year's Pocket Opera edition.
Yeah, so this was our class of resident artists from last year. Every year TCO has over 500 people audition for these 4 slots. They're amazing people: James Sierras, Janine Warren, Kyrie Laybourne, and Daniel Esteban Lugo. And just such a talented crew, and they were up for anything too. I mean, Santino, we call him stage director, but Santino was also a mentor in this process and really helped bring out the best from the artists involved and offer his very pristine sensibilities around what works dramatically, musically, and contextually to bring these to life. And I think I know that these artists had such a great time working on this show because of the way Santino was able to pull it together to tease out meaning. I mean, you'll see very simple production from this photo, but we have little elements, that were at Santino's request to just bring the character to life with a little item that really gave us a sense of who we were dealing with. And it's some of the magic that we have to create. It's really, it is magic. It's this suspension of disbelief. It's all those theater terms that, you might have learned about way back when. And it's really inspiring, I think, when you watch this to see the way, the music stands, the instruments, all this stuff, it just disappears and you get lost in the stories. It's really a testament to Santino's work and the work of these artists, musicians, to just create something that's really special, that is more than a sum of the parts.
Yeah, I would say those little flourishes are, about remembering that for so many people in our audience, these are kids that are experiencing opera for the first time. So this is our chance to set the tone of what this art form can be, and just letting their imagination go wild with the crown or the hamster ears or whatever it is. Just gives them permission to dream about what this music and story can mean for them internally, and it's fun. Have a good time.
Yeah, that last image we saw was from the aforementioned hamster and fish pocket opera, and also featured Brenda Iglesias, who was part of the performing cast too, and she does great work at Binghamton University. So, Tino, what do you have cooking in New York City? Is there anything you can tell us before we let you go?
Yeah, we just started rehearsals for Gypsy with Audra McDonald that we're bringing to Broadway this December. We start previews next month, so definitely come get your tickets. We're having a great time. I think it is truly going to be a production for the ages. So that's really taking most of our time, but also I am the director of the Terrence McNally Foundation in New York. And that's a foundation that supports early career playwrights. And we just finished our second cycle of this thing called the New Works Incubator, where we basically identify 3 promising playwrights in New York City and give them an opportunity to have a little showcase. So we just finished that. And now we start the selection process all over again for our programs for next year. So always looking for new opportunities for early career artists. And
new opportunities, right?
That's right.
Right, John?
Right.
Sorry. Sorry. It's getting late. Well, Santino, thank you so much for joining us and for your great work on this project. And I know we're going to collaborate again in the future, and I very much look forward to that day. So best
Andy,
of luck
you're an
to you.
amazing artist and a great friend. And I just want to thank you for the work you're doing and putting this all together. And John, I love you.
I love you too.
Wow, this is awesome.
He'll be back.
Oh, I'll be back. We have our third one coming right up, May 10th. Mark your calendars.
Amen.
All right. Well, we'll see Santino up here for the Pocket Opera Project, if not sooner. And John, we've talked to a lot of people this hour, but I think it's finally time to talk to a student who had their story adapted into an opera. Let's welcome Tilda from the Lehman Alternative Community School in Ithaca to the show. Tilda, how are you?
Hi. You can hear me, right? Sorry.
Yes, we can. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm doing quite well. You?
We're doing good. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks so much for writing In the Shadows. Tilda wrote. There it is. There's your original notebooks of In the Shadows, and this is what you sent. Not all of these notebooks. You didn't send them all to the Student Writing Challenge.
Awesome.
Tell us what you sent in for the Student Writing Challenge, and this would have been, I believe, what, 2 years ago now, I think?
Yeah, I think so. I sent in about the first half of the first chapter because there was a 500-word limit, so I couldn't really send in more than that. But I figured it was like a good enough hook that it might, be it might be do well in the competition.
Well, it not only did well in the competition, it ended up getting turned into an opera. Could you even imagine that?
No,
from when
not when I sent it in. Most certainly not.
Well, and why don't you tell me how much? You said there was a 500-word limit. How many pages of the story had you written at that point?
At that point, I mean, I'm still not entirely sure how many pages of the story I've written because some of it's typed up and some of it's still in like the written format, and I'm writing more right now. So, but I think I probably have over a couple hundred pages. Maybe I don't know how many pages really. Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question.
Well, you told me that you would write and it would actually appear in your student newspaper, correct? As a serial.
Yeah,
so.
But the thing that I sent in was far more edited from that. So that was about a year after I had finished the first draft in the block scene.
So Dan mentioned earlier when he was on stories about elves, although in your story they weren't actually elves, but I'm sure he was referring to In the Shadows when he was describing the story. Can you give our audience just a quick little background of In the Shadows and the characters that live in its universe?
Okay, so essentially In the Shadows is like it's I wouldn't say that it takes place on Earth, but the planet would be called Earth because basically I'm writing it in English. And basically the idea of In the Shadows is that there is the character Terran, who is the younger brother of King Destrain, who has just taken over after his father has died, possibly suspiciously. And he sort of starts interacting with this person who doesn't look like a human. He's blue and he has slitted cat-like eyes, so he starts interacting with this person named Asher, and they sort of do a bit of a they kind of see each other in weird places for the first few chapters, and then this guy named the Headhunter is brought into the picture, he's a bounty hunter. He's one of the most infamous out there, and he has theoretically lived for hundreds of years, though that actually it's not actually him. It's more of like a passed down thing, but people don't know that. And so basically what happens is that Terran's terrified of him. He misunderstands some things that he overhears, and he basically takes off into the woods fearing for his life. And he meets up with Asher, and he has his giant wolf, he a great wolf who's roughly the size of a horse, named Silver, with him. And then the Headhunter ends up kidnapping his brother for political reasons, and he meets up with the Headhunter's apprentice / nephew, and this daughter of some of the barons in the countryside. And they go off and basically try to rescue his brother. And there's some other stuff that happens as well, but that's the quickest plot summary that I can.
Well, I was going to say, like, at some point, Tilda, I imagine that the story is going to get published, so we don't want to, share too much of the story with the audience. But I mean, I was just so captivated by the detail of all the characters, and we were able to interview Liam Frager, who was the student composer who adapted your story, and we were able to interview him for the broadcast episode, and I thought it was very interesting how he was only able to take a page and a half of your story, but then expand it out. And before we talk anymore, we do have one little clip that I would love to show that we weren't able to show in the broadcast episode, but here is a little bit more of Kith and King, the pocket opera adapted from In the Shadows by Tilda.
I already have a brother. I don't need a sister. Now I get a sister too. Family strength. Families strength. Are gone. Destiny has brought us together. Destiny has brought another fall into my life. Sister, again, we were meant to meet. It's destiny. Destiny. It's my destiny to rule, most powerful of all. Command, conquer, control. And this is my decree. Oh, hail me. To rebuild our family, I finally know who I am. I'll rid the kingdom of this land. It's destiny. Destiny. It's
destiny. All right. So obviously that's where the characters are starting to figure out a little bit more about the secret relationships, and but of course I have to ask, like, how different was the opera production from your story?
It was very different in a lot of places, down to the characterization of certain characters. Though they did actually get Taryn almost spot on, for at least with the information that they had. But there were actually some surprising things where there were characters that were mentioned that I hadn't. There were characters that were similar to characters that show up later that were mentioned in the pocket opera that I had not mentioned in the snippet that I gave them. So maybe we were thinking along the same brainwave or something. But a couple of things like Asher having a relative that has in this one it's Ashlyn, I think, having Asher and Ashlyn both having a relative that has sort of like abandoned them from for various reasons was definitely a thing that I was like, whoa, that's a pretty big similarity. But yeah, the rather murderous nature of Destrain is actually entirely the murderous nature of Alpheus is polar opposite to Destrain's character, which I find quite interesting because he's actually a pretty chill dude.
Well, not to spoil the ending of the pocket opera.
Oh.
But yeah, a lot of unfortunately a lot of your main characters don't make it until the end, and I was so interested in hearing your reaction, and you can see it on the broadcast episode. But why don't you tell our audience here too? Like were you upset that the characters you created?
No. I was not upset at all. I actually I really love to see what people will do with I really love that my creative work inspired somebody else's creative work, and I really like collective storytelling and like the on like transformative works. I think that that's a very cool thing and something that I very much like. And I also do have a bit of penchant for a bit of angst and high drama. So I actually quite enjoyed seeing the result of
Well,
the thing.
do you
even if
think
it
you'll
was
use any of the ideas from the pocket opera as you continue to expand the story of these characters in your own work?
probably not, because they were very different from each other. Like they were different enough that I don't think that they would mesh well as one story. So probably not.
Yeah.
Also, I have like a mostly fully realized story, and I just have to like fill in a bunch of the middle bits and like work on description some more. So
Yeah,
you know.
I just have to say, Tilda, you're inspiring. I'm so glad that you are writing. I'm so glad that you're expressing and creating, and just there's a light around you as you talk about this stuff. That is just awesome. It is
Yeah, I
exactly
mean,
why.
like what you just said about, inspiring others to create art. I'm sure, that's why John and I, kind of do what we do when I create my programs, and when John, puts his operas together, it's to inspire an emotion from the audience and to make them feel something. So the fact that you've already, realized that is truly amazing and something to be proud of for sure.
Oh, thank you, both of you.
So
I will add one thing. Is it really an opera if everybody's not dead at the end? TBD, right?
I mean, that is a question.
Right. Fair.
Well, Tilda, what do you see for yourself in the future?
I mean, I do intend to finish my book, and I currently don't have a publisher or an agent, but I'm probably going to be looking for one of those within the next year or 2 years.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Or so. Hopefully I'll find one.
That's awesome.
Well, best of
but,
luck
yeah.
for sure. It's an amazing story, and I mean, you're truly talented, and you've got a very, very bright future. And remember, when you sell the movie rights, please give WSKG a call. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Well, best of luck to you the rest of your school year, and we hope to see you again in the future, Tilda.
Yeah.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
see you guys again too.
All right. All right, John. I think we're about ready to wrap up. But anything you want to talk about? Any upcoming events at TCO that we should let our audience know about?
Yeah, well, there's so much. I mean, it's our 75th anniversary season. Among things that are just happening, we launched a youth choir about 2 weeks ago. Super exciting. We have our birthday bash coming up on October 19th, which is just a celebration, a cake, champagne, dancing. Tickets are at $10 in advance. We want it to be a place where the whole community can come out and celebrate with us. We'll be offering tours of our facility. There's a lot more than meets the eye at Tri-Cities Opera. When you drive by the building, it seems kind of just.
Are you giving tours of your set pieces?
Yes, we will be doing some tours of all the shops. I mean, we have about just under 100,000 square feet of working shops, offices, producing spaces, storage, where there are years and decades of opera stuff. I mean, it's really, there's something marvelous, special, and almost sacred about the Tri-Cities Opera Center. I call our cold storage area, where we have about 22 productions in these sort of vertical bays that are kind of equivalent to a 53-foot semi truck, which you transport them in, and they just rise from floor to like 35, 40 feet in the air. And it's just a cool space. And I think one of the things that not everybody knows about TCO is that our sets and costumes and our props are rented out all over the country. Actually, this week, we're sending out our whole production of The Marriage of Figaro, our set and costumes for La Boheme, which will travel to 3 different companies in Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. And then Tosca goes out this week too. So, one of the things we do as a company is bring resources into this community through our rental business and through our educational initiatives and grants and such, to make sure that this area has opera. It's becoming a rarer and rarer thing to have a full-scale opera company. And I have to say, it is the legacy of Binghamton, the blessing of this investment in the arts, Broome County, the Southern Tier, that makes it such a special place where, I mean, there's nowhere else where an opera company like Tri-Cities Opera could have achieved all that it has in the past 75 years. So
yeah, you're not only keeping opera alive in Broome County, but by renting these sets across the country, you're keeping opera alive, throughout the entire United States. So that's really something to be proud of. And you're also, there's an exhibit at Roberson opening this Friday as well, I believe.
I mean, there's so much going. Like I said, so the Roberson exhibit opens on October 4th. I'll be doing a little talk. I think it's at 7, maybe at 8. I think it's at 7. And we'll have some singing happening. Also, beyond the exhibit at the Roberson, we have our production of All Is Calm, the Christmas Truce of 1914, which is about the Christmas Truce of 1914. And it's a really amazing piece because essentially it's beautiful arrangements of a cappella Christmas carols and fight songs, and it's woven together with the stories, the actual words from letters of the people who lived that experience. I mean, it's just really a remarkable work. And coming up in the new year, we have our Rodgers and Hammerstein Review, a grand night for singing, that will happen on March 8th at the United Presbyterian Church, which is the place where Tri-Cities Opera held its first rehearsals 75 years ago. That's super exciting. And then we have our big, grand, classic Verdi tragedy, Rigoletto, in April. And then, of course, Pocket Opera Project on May 10th, and then Opera and Beer right before Memorial Day. So it's a busy season. And in between all those shows, we'll be touring to schools with our kids' production of The Ugly Duckling. And also, one thing I would love to mention is that we have free tickets for kids. We're serious about inviting the next generation of creators and opera lovers or theater or music lovers into what we do. We truly, as I said before, believe it is for everyone. And so anyone under the age of 18 comes for free. When accompanied by an adult can get up to 4 free tickets for their kids, their youths. We also offer deeply discounted tickets for students. We have a senior, veteran, military discount. We want it to be accessible, and that's why we rent our sets and costumes. That's why we write grants and fundraise, so that we can underwrite these shows so that the community can really fall in love with the art form. And Pocket Opera Project is just another way that we do that.
And we do have links in our chat box for tickets, and you can definitely check out all the great productions that TCO is putting on in their 75th anniversary season. Well, John, I think that's going to wrap up tonight's edition of the Expressions Digital Director's Cut. I want to thank all of our guests who joined us, but a special thank you to you, John, for hanging in there for the entire hour. And always great working with you. And I'm sure we're going to collaborate again in the future.
Absolutely. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you for putting this all together. We're just thrilled. So bravo to you for your work on this project. You really did beautifully.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And a reminder that you can watch the broadcast version of the Pocket Opera Project by visiting wskg.org/expressions. And a link to this program has been provided in the chat box. And if you have a child in your life, grades K through 12, and would like more information about this year's Student Writing Challenge, then please click the link in the chat box about how they can enter. I need to thank Alyssa Micha and Adam Striley for their behind-the-scenes help this evening. And we will be back soon with another behind-the-scenes look of a great Expressions episode. Until then, this is Andy Piak. Good night.